no society collapses in conflict without there being underlying and probably very deep-rooted stresses, within that society. And I think inequality is probably one of the biggest.
The culture of all our societies were probably born out of warfare. The culture was born out of men fighting men, and even respected commanders in history were turning a blind eye to rape and pillage and looting and were laying waste to lands. And now, at the end of the 21st century, we came to that sea change moment in 2000 when the UN adopted 1325. That was an epic point in history in many respects. We're actually changing millennia of culture.
Resolution 1325 started for the 21st century a concerted campaign by the UN to protect women and children in warfare and conflicts, as the international community recognised that in the 20th century far greater harm and far greater damage was done to the innocents, the defenceless and the weak than to the combatants of war. UN Resolution 1325 now stands on trial before you, the jury. The brief history of 1325 stands as nothing to the thousands of years of barbarism in conflict that has taken place. Small steps by many nations have now started new initiatives to change the story of the world. The fact that today's conference has taken place is evidence of that. To vote today that 1325 is guilty of not being effective is to condemn the many positive changes that have taken place. To say it is not working is to condemn it as a failure.
We, the respondents, say no. The issue is one of activity versus delivery, one of theory over reality. In short, at grassroots level, on the ground, in the world's places of conflict, is the everyday lives of women, their protection in times of conflict, and their freedom and welcome to participate in the peacemaking and reconciliation processes, demonstrably better now than in 2000. It is our case that it is not, or at least not sufficiently better now than in 2000 to be declared a success. It is our case that there is a disconnect between the well-intentioned efforts of the United Nations at the top and the actual activities on the ground.
I'm now going to call my first witness, Hossein Mahmoud from Iraq.
My problem is not with the resolution itself, it's with the government. Iraq is now supposedly the first government in the Middle East to have accepted this national action plan, but actually the problem is the following procedures, and it's the implementation of it throughout Iraq, which I am very concerned about, because historically speaking, many governments in the region, they accept and they verify or ratify these international declarations, but they actually put it on the shelf and they don't work on it.
My name is Nerma Jelicic. I represent the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, where I run communications and outreach. Nobody would have been able to say in the 90s that one day We will see trials for war crimes in Belgrade, in Zagreb, in Kosovo, throughout Bosnia and Herzegovina, and today it is happening. These different national jurisdictions are cooperating across the region, exchanging evidence, witnesses, testimonies, etc., etc. It is crucial because while ICTY has had the highest tally in terms of the number of people brought to justice, victims always want to see more. There are thousands of potential perpetrators to be prosecuted, and national courts are doing this with the help of the ICTY, with the help of the international community, and developments that have happened since the 90s in bringing to justice those who committed the atrocities during the war.
Ms. Jelacic, I'd like to thank you for your time and for your evidence today. Thank you.
Rujia Mutawa from Libya, please. How much support has your organization received from international organizations?
Our charity has received a lot of assistance from international agencies in order to support our cause. That has invited us to workshops, focus groups, to talk more about our subjects. We were able to bring back the information that we gained, and we were able to implement them within our local organizations.
So in these 3 years, we qualified 5,000 women, and more than 3,500 they have a job and they work and help themselves.
Thank you, Madam Mutawa.
Thank you.
1325 was good in giving us the courage that we are supported by in our work in training women in these areas to have a voice during conflict and during peace, and to sharing conflict resolution and conflict prevention and all this. It gives us the courage that we are supported by UN resolutions.
I think without a statement of international intent, you don't move forward. So we have a starting point from which everyone can refer and use it as a leverage to get things done. Have we done enough in the last 14 years? The answer is clearly not.
Madam, please can you explain to the court what steps your government has taken, if any, towards implementing Resolution 1325?
Not at all, no change at all. But it's going worse by worse.
Yeah, women, they're like slaves in Congo. Like slave in Congo. There's no improvement at all. Is what I can say.
To start with, so far the government has no plan for implementing 1325.
Prior to the revolution in 2011, did the Libyan government, then Libyan government, implement 1325 at any time?
لا طبعا, of course not.
No, not at all.
And does Burma have a national action plan in relation to 1325?
No, Burma does not have that national action plan on the women, peace and security.
Would you therefore agree with me that sexual violence offences against women are being perpetrated in Burma?
Yes, for Burma case is very difficult to say because the perpetrator itself is the government, the head of the countries. So who is going to take the responsibility while the government is the one who is committing the crimes? All the UN resolutions, I want to be very frank, there is not really binding at all. I mean, like there is no, if the government do not take action, then the UN cannot give any punishment. That means that who is going to make sure that each country is taking account? Otherwise, we are very hopeless, even there is more and more resolution come out. For Burma, women, children, and all human beings who are committed with this human rights violation are hopeless.
I'm worried and concerned that by looking at the nature of the Iraqi government, it's almost very difficult to get this resolution put into practice on the local level and national level as well. What about funding, Ms. Mahmood? You know, the Iraqi government, so far that I am aware of, they fund certain organizations who belong to political parties that already are in the Iraqi government. I mean, every now and then we see a new law coming in, calling for Sharia law or Jafari law, which is all discriminative and legalizing rape, polygamy, and basically child marriage at the age of 9. So if you have that, then how can we actually push for 1325? So we are faced with multiple problems in Iraq, and we have very few people like us and my organization who are actually working with a very different approach and from a very different mindset.
The challenge that 1325 faces is being able to defeat at many levels, not only cultural, political, social, but ideologically, certain states.
What about funding? How well funded is your organisation by the government, if at all?
No, the government only used to fund what we call the government NGOs only. They don't support us.
Especially when resolutions or matters concerning women, because you know this has to do with gender roles, and these are very deeply and socially constructed. And you see, and there is a need to hammer continuously on such things, because this is a deep culture. It needs a lot of effort to be changed.
If we really mean what we say in Resolution 1325, then we should be distributing aid accordingly to allow the women, the wonderful women we heard speak today, who have organisations, all of them need funding.
Well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have now heard all of the evidence. You have heard from 5 courageous women who have spoken about their own circumstances and the challenges they face in their own countries. What I would like to do is to summarise some of that evidence for you and to set out the position of the defence in this application. The question is whether UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and subsequent resolutions on women, peace and security have been effective. But I would invite you, members of the jury, to conclude that this resolution has been the catalyst for change. It has been the catalyst for this issue coming to the forefront of international discussion. And for that reason, it would be wrong of us to say that it has not been effective. Thank you very much.
As my learned friend said to you, the question today for you to decide, for you to answer, is whether Resolution 1325 has been effective. What does that mean? Effective tomorrow, effective in the future, effective next month, next year, or effective now, as at today's date? It is your chance today to tell the world leaders that they have not done enough and that more needs to be done. To be effective, you may think, it needs to be something more than merely existing. It needs to deliver clear, concrete, tangible results.
Men and women of the jury, you've heard from the witnesses, you've heard from the defense counsel, you've heard from the prosecution counsel. So members of jury, on balance, will you raise your hand if you find United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 to have been effective? Those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. You can keep raising them. I'm seeing some reluctantly going up. Thank you. And those of you who feel the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 has not been effective, I don't have to count. I think that's pretty obvious. So I find, in accordance with the decision of the jury, that United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, as of June 2014, has not been effective. The rather extraordinary thing about Resolution 1325 is that it recognized that peace is not the space between wars, but something else. It recognized that peace is linked to gender equality, and that gender inequality is one of the causes of conflict.